All right, what's up, you guys? Today we're going to be walking through a new feature that Anthropic just released this morning. It's called Claude for small business. Now, this is Anthropic's attempt to break into the small business sector, right? They've been targeting a lot of enterprise businesses, making a lot of large enterprise deals. Now they're trying to break into the small business sector, getting their paws all over the work that you and me and a lot of AI agency owners have been working on. But what is Claude for small business? It's basically just a plugin which comes with a bunch of different workflows and skills that help automate things within small businesses that business owners usually do manually, right? So it connects to a bunch of different applications such as Stripe, HubSpot, PayPal, QuickBooks, and it helps automate some functions within those. So we're going to be walking through all the major workflows that are associated with this plugin and what this means for small business owners as well as AI agency owners who are incorporating AI automations into these small businesses, okay? So let's get after it. All right, so I'm here inside of Claude Cowork, and let's just go over right now what is included in this new plugin that Anthropic has for small businesses, okay? So we're going to go over to, let's see, let's take a look at the plugin right here. So as you can see, it comes with a bunch of different skills. Okay, these are all the skills that are included in this, including skills on getting, business summaries, skills to connect to Canva, develop a content strategy, review contracts, chase down invoices through QuickBooks. So there's just a bunch of different use cases that encompass a bunch of different things that a small business would usually do. Okay, and it connects to a bunch of different integrations such as QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot. Over here we can actually see all the connections that it can connect to, right? So a lot of pretty standard applications that small business owners would use to handle their finances, communications, documents, CRM, all that kind of stuff. So let's get started. Before we even jump into any particular workflows or skills that are associated with this, I'm just going to first go over a couple of base skills that are included in this package. Okay, so there's two base skills that are included with this plugin that help you get set up. The first one is called SMB Onboard. Basically lays the foundation for how you're going to be using Claude for small business. It helps you connect to whatever softwares that you have in your specific tech stack. So if you're working with a business or if you're a business yourself who is trying to incorporate your Stripe for payments, incorporate your QuickBooks to automate some of the stuff in there, this skill will basically just walk you through how to connect all of those and what you actually need to connect for your specific use case. Now, what's interesting about this skill is it'll actually interview you about your business so that it can get an idea of who you are, what your business is, and so it can develop a good plan for what to automate within your business. One of the highest leverage things that this plugin can be used for. All right, so let's try out a specific use case of SMB Onboard. Okay, let's just jump into it. So I'm going to tell Claude my name is, actually, you know what? I have Whisper Flow, so I'm going to use that. Hey, my name is Zach. I run an AI agency. I want to onboard myself on using the Claude for Small Business plugin that I just installed. Okay. And now it's going to do that as a little typo over here, but it should be able to figure it out. So as you can see here, it's going to run the skill, the SMB Onboard Skill, and it's going to help me set up by asking me some questions before we dive in. So as you can see, I only connected my Google Drive so far to this account. And it's going to ask me some questions. Okay, so what's your biggest day-to-day headaches running the agency? Is it more around money and invoicing, keeping up with clients, or staying organized? Okay, so I'm just going to say, yeah, I just pretty much have a problem with keeping up with invoicing, and I just don't like to chase people down for that. I also want to be able to do some financial analysis with this, so just curious if you can point me in the right direction. Okay, and then we're going to give it a little bit of direction here. It's going to help us basically figure out the best way to use Claude for a small business. So you can see here it's recommending two different tools that are actually incorporated with the plugin, right? There's an accounting/invoicing tool, which you can see who owes you money, automate payment reminders, all that stuff. And it also has a payment processor tool, so it can match payments against invoices and flag stuff, okay? And it's also giving us an option here if we want to use QuickBooks for our books and invoicing, and then what do we use on the payment side. Okay, so basically this skill helps you onboard, it helps give you suggestions on the best way to use Claude for small business. Now, let's go into the other skill. The other skill that we have is called SMB Router, okay? Basically, this helps handle more ambiguous things, okay? Let's say you don't even know what you want to do. First of all, like I gave this Claude thing a general idea like, hey, I have this problem with financial analysis and chasing people down for invoices. I want help with that. But let's say you know that you don't necessarily know what your problem even is. Let's give it a little bit more of a vague question, okay? I'm a little bit behind right now. I don't really know what to post this week on my social media. Okay, we can give that to Claude Code, or not Claude Code, Claude Cowork. I'm so used to using Claude Code. And it's going to think of a solution using this SMB Router skill. Okay, so generally SMB Router is a skill that's going to handle your more general high-level questions where you don't necessarily have a direction. And SMB Onboard is basically going to help you onboard to the whole tool in itself. Okay, so it's going to just empathize with our problem here. Say it's a real headache. And it's going to say that the plugin actually has a full content strategy skill that helps analyze our sales data and works best when we connect with QuickBooks or Stripe and all that. Okay, so basically the whole purpose of these two onboarding skills, right, SMB Onboard and SMB Router, is to help point small business owners in the right direction when they're first starting out. Now, if you're an AI agency helping to incorporate this into a small business, you can just basically tell them how to do this, right? You don't need to necessarily direct them to use these skills. You can use them for yourself to help identify the best pain points within the business, but really this is just like a beginner, very basic level of how to get onboarded with this tool. But yeah, so those are the onboarding skills. Let's walk into the specific workflows and use cases that this Claude for Small Business feature is good for. So before we do this, I'm actually just going to ask Claude Code to lay it out for us. So let's say, can you tell me what workflows and skills are available with the Claude for Small Business plugin? And let's just ask it to lay it out. There's different use cases across finance, marketing, sales, but I just want to show you guys a general visual so we can walk through each of them together. Okay, so these are the specific skills that are available with the Claude for Small Business plugin. You can see here it encompasses money and finance, and so we have a bunch of different skills here to manage a bunch of different financial aspects of a business. We have a lot of skills here for customers and sales as well. We have some skills here for marketing and content, operations and hiring, and also weekly briefings, so just general business operations. Okay, so let's walk through each one of these. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think it's good for us to get a general idea of what this has to offer, because it's a very powerful tool that lets you connect to a bunch of different softwares within a small business. All right, so the first skill we're going to walk through is Business Pulse. It's basically the first thing that a business owner might run in the morning. Okay, it basically pulls a one-page report of just a general snapshot of your business. Okay, so your cash position from QuickBooks, recent sales from PayPal or Square, any pipeline movement from HubSpot in your sales pipeline, what's on your calendar this week, urgent items on Slack. So it's basically a comprehensive overview of the most important things that a business owner might need to know at the beginning of their day to get started with their work. Okay, and the key thing here is that it doesn't just read numbers from the business. It basically synthesizes them into a summary. So it won't just say, you have $42,000 in the bank, right? It'll tell you actually that cash is up $3,200 month over month, but you have $9,800 in accounts payable due in the next 10 days. Okay, something like that. So it's more of like a briefing rather than just a dashboard. Okay, so let's just do a general mock-up briefcase. I'm not going to connect to every single one of these, but I'm going to show you how it would look like inside of Claude Cowork. And so you can just get a general feel of how you might use this in your business or how you might incorporate this into a business if you're an agency. So let's just tell Claude Code, I want you to generate a mock use case for the Business Pulse workflow skill. Okay. All right, you can kind of see here, it's kind of generating that report that I just talked about. It has the most important thing for you to do today. It has the financial metrics over here. It also talks about the pipeline, just a general weekly summary, and then stuff that the business owners should take into account for the week. And you can see here it draws from softwares like QuickBooks, HubSpot, Gmail, and Google Calendar. So once you connect all those to your Claude Cowork, it'll be able to basically generate this high-level executive summary of what there is to do for the day. Okay. All right, so that was Business Pulse. Now let's walk through Cashflow Snapshot. So I'm going to tell Claude Cowork, all right, generate me a mock use case now for Cashflow Snapshot. Now, basically what this skill does is it basically connects to your QuickBooks, PayPal, Stripe, and Square, and then builds a 30, 60, or 90-day forward-looking projection of your cash balance. It looks at how your customers actually pay, it uses historical settlement timing, and it also factors in known fixed costs and upcoming bills. Okay, so it's just a very general overview of your business's cash flow. Now you're basically just getting a forecast with confidence bands, risk flags tied to very specific invoices, and it also names dates where your cash might be tight. So it also does financial projections into the future as well. So you can see here, it basically has another summary of your cash flow. Okay, you can aggregate it by 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. It has projections for the 30-day horizon window that it's taking into account. And it also has, expected in, expected out, You can see here it also generates some graphs for your cash projections for this 30-day horizon. When I was using this earlier this morning, it was kind of funny. I think they fixed the glitch right now, but it was projecting up to like May 38th or like May 41st. It was just like really wrong day projections, but it looks like it got it right now, so that's good. You can see like the money going in, money coming in, money going out, and then some flags for specific risks like overdue payments and pending clients, all that kind of stuff. And you can see here you can aggregate it by different day horizons, so 60 days and 90 days as well. It looks like it's not really loading right now. But yeah, so this is just a general cash flow snapshot for your business. Helps you automate the building of this, and once you connect it to your financial applications such as QuickBooks, you can really get a good idea of your business's cash flow. All right, now let's talk about the month-end prep and close month skills. Okay, so let's tell Claude Code, I want you to mock up the month-end prep and close month skill use case. And then I use the word school so much that it kind of directed it to that, but it's probably gonna work. So, all right, so basically every month in your small business and you're reconciling your books, if you're doing it manually, now you can do it with the new Claude Small Business feature. Basically, the month-end prep skill walks you through the full close, basically pulling transcriptions from your tools such as QuickBooks, and it reconciles them against your payment processors, right? So PayPal, Square, or Stripe settlements. And it will basically flag any uncategorized transactions, any suspicious duplicates, anything that looks like it's missing a receipt. So it'll basically handle all of the anomalies, make sure that you're reconciling your books automatically and properly. And it'll basically write a plain English P&L narrative, basically explaining what happened this month, such as things like your revenue was up maybe 8% or something like that. And then it'll output to an Excel file and a one-page PDF so that you can hand it directly to your accountant or keep it for your own records, right? And there's also a companion skill to this called Month Heads Up that's designed to run on the 25th of each month. Basically gives you a forward look so you can spot problems before the month ends. But you can see here, the mock use case of this skill has run. Basically pulls the transactions from April from QuickBooks and reconciles them against PayPal, okay? And this is the output of this skill over here. You can see here it also gives a summary of what it's done. April is a strong month, revenue is up 12% over March, blah, 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 blah. There's just a bunch of mock data, but you can see kind of an idea of what it would generate for you when you're actually reconciling your books at the end of the month. You can see here it gives you two different files to export, an Excel file and also a PDF summary. All right, now let's walk through the planning payroll use case. So let's tell Claude Code, I want you to mock up a use case for plan payroll. And basically with the new Claude for Small Business feature, it'll allow you to alleviate the pressure from making payroll, which can be one of the most stressful moments for a small business owner. Basically forecasts your cash position against your payroll date and ranks every overdue invoice by how urgently you need it to come in. It'll also stage PayPal payment reminders for the most critical ones. What's interesting here is it'll also model different scenarios. So say that your biggest client pays late, or maybe they pay early. What's going to be the impact of that on your payroll? And it'll basically just give you an overview of your payroll for the month. Okay, so you can kind of see here, I don't know why it says School Inc. I think it's because I made that typo earlier with school, right? But anyways, let's see. So this is just the basic payroll summary that it'll give out for you. All right, cash on hand, PayPal selling by Thursday, and then payroll due. Basically gives you an idea of your company's payroll. What's interesting here is it'll basically draft reminders for your customers based on their payment history, right? So if they're pretty much like something like Meridian Digital, right, who's usually pretty late and they're 14 days overdue now, it'll have a little bit of a firm follow-up with them. It's like, hi Marcus, following up, blah, 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 please arrange the payment. So it'll be a little bit more firm in its follow-up reminder. Whereas if you have someone like Foxglove Studio who, has a better payment history with you and they're just 7 days overdue, maybe this is like a first-time offense, then it'll be a little bit more friendly with them. Like, hi Priya, just a quick nudge on invoice 1039, right? So that's pretty interesting. It basically drafts up these payment reminders based off of the customer specific payroll history that it gets from your specific software that you connect to it, right? You can see here it also gives you an idea of your payroll status, right? So you're cleared to run payroll Thursday. No need to wait on either of these invoices that are overdue, right? So just a general payroll manager that you have right here. It basically connects to your QuickBooks and your PayPal and any other payment software that you're using to help manage this. All right, and then the last skill of the Claude for Small Business plugin that we're going to talk about is the tax prep and tax season organizer. Okay, so let's tell Claude Cowork, I want you to mock up a use case for tax prep and tax season organizer. It'll basically handle quarterly estimated taxes, pulling your year-to-date net income from QuickBooks, calculating your federal income tax liability, plus any self-employment tax, and it'll also give you the number that your quarterly payment should be. It basically gives you the math so you're not doing any guessing during tax season, okay? The second is a 1099 NEC prep. So if you've paid contractors more than $600, the skill basically scans QuickBooks, PayPal, and Stripe and identifies everyone who hits that threshold, basically building a candidate list and flagging anyone that's missing a W-9. And the output is a summary that your accounting can work from directly, basically saving you a bunch of hours during April, during tax season at your year's end. Okay, so you can see here, this is a general summary of the tax season organizer, what it's giving you. So it'll give you some numbers that are relevant for your taxes, including the year-to-date net income, your annualized tax estimate. It'll also give you some rates over here, like self-employment tax and the amount that you're gonna have to pay for that, and just federal income tax too, the amount you're gonna pay for that. So basically it helps you consolidate a lot of information from your specific softwares and build out a tax report that you can use to hand off to your CPA or your financial advisor to help you on your behalf. You can see here it also includes 1099 NEC prep. So you can flag all of the 1090C candidates that you have and see which ones are missing their W-9, which ones you might have to reach out to for that, and any flags that you might have there. All right, so those were the skills for financial operations that Claude for Small Business can handle. Let's jump into some of the sales and CRM skills and how it might be able to handle those operations within your business. Okay, so the first skill we're gonna walk through is lead triage and call list. So let's tell Claude Cowork, I want you to walk me through an example of a lead triage and call list use case. Just mock it up. All right. Basically, if you're running sales through HubSpot, the lead triage skill is going to feel like having a sales manager on your team. It scores every inbound lead based on engagement signals, so how they've interacted with your emails, your website, your content. It draws all of that information from HubSpot, and it outputs a list of specific prospects that you should call right now, right? So based off of those engagement signals, it identifies the warmest leads, which ones you should reach out to right away, and it'll draft up follow-up emails that are ready to send and also block out time on your calendar for your conversations with these prospects. And the call list skill is a little bit of a quicker version of this. It's basically a morning command that you can use when you just want to know who to call today without running the full triage rundown of lead triage, right? So the talking points that it gives you are going to be specific to each contact based on what they've actually done in your sales pipeline and how long it's been since you've last connected with them, okay? So you can see here it's scanning leads from HubSpot, and it basically builds a pipeline snapshot of 5 leads that are worth calling today, right? So we have Nadia Park, Devin Tran, Mia Okafor. It basically gives them a score of how urgent it would be to reach out to these people based on certain engagement signals that they had within your pipeline, right? So you can see Nadia Park here, very high engagement. She really wanted to schedule a demo, right? She rescheduled it twice and was very open with flexibility. And she had a email that was specifically about onboarding timeline, right? So she's very interested, very hot lead over here, so reach out to her today. Then there's some other ones over here that are also very hot and should be reached out to right away. So basically analyzes your sales pipeline, sees who are the highest prospects to target, and flags those for you. You can see here it also drafts some follow-ups. So over here, hi Nadia, totally understanding the scheduling crunch. I put together a 4-minute walkthrough, blah, 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 basically drafting up this email to reach out to and follow up with these prospects. And what it's also going to do is block out time in your calendar. And yeah, so super good use case for just triaging leads that come into your CRM and making sure that you're targeting the highest leverage ones with the highest engagement signals. Now let's walk through another skill. This is going to be the CRM Maintenance and CRM Cleanup skills that come along with this small business package. So let's tell Claude Cowork, all right, mock up a use case for CRM Maintenance and CRM Cleanup. So one of the biggest concerns and complaints about CRMs is data entry, right? Contacts falling out of date, deals sitting in the wrong stage, and notes not getting logged, right? It costs a lot to upkeep this. And so the CRM maintenance is basically designed to fix that It reads your email and calendar context and then updates HubSpot automatically, right? It creates and updates contacts from recent conversations, logs, calls, and notes, and moves deals through different stages based on what actually happened, right? With the goal being to stop doing data entry and having your CRM just reflect the reality of whatever situation you have these prospects in. Now, the difference between CRM Maintenance and CRM Cleanup is that CRM Cleanup is a one-time version of this, right? You run it when things have gotten very messy. It'll basically scan your CRM for stale deals, duplicate contacts, any missing required fields, and fixes what you approve. And it won't change anything without asking first. Okay, so basically an easy way to clean up your CRM, such as if you're using HubSpot, you can clean up any of your deal stages, any stale deals, all that stuff. And you can see here, it's basically ran this CRM maintenance skill to help identify different updates across your CRM and what it can clean up, right? So there's two new contacts that are not in HubSpot yet, 3 deals that you need to advance, different stale deals that were flagged that had no activity in the last 12 days, and also proposes some ideas for how you can clean up your CRM, right? It won't do anything without you approving it, but it'll basically just flag these things as different things that you can do to clean up your CRM, clean up your deal pipeline, all that stuff, right? And you can see here, CRM Cleanup is a little bit of a quicker, one-time version of that, as I mentioned. So it'll basically flag all the stale deals, duplicate contacts, missing key fields. You run it once, and then it'll just flag all these, give you ideas for how you can clean up your CRM and your sales pipeline. All right, so that was CRM Maintenance and CRM Cleanup. Let's walk through the Invoice Chase skill. So tell Claude Cowork, I want you to mock up a use case for Invoice Chase. All right, and let's input this into Claude Cowork. Basically, late payments are a very common source of cash flow problems for a lot of small businesses, right? Let's say, for example, a customer is late on their payment. It's going to mess up your cash flow. It's going to mess up your payroll at the end of the month. It's going to mess up with a lot of things, right? And chasing them down for these invoices can get complex. It can get uncomfortable, right? And so this skill basically helps you streamline a lot of those operations to make sure that you're able to chase down these invoices properly and in an organized fashion and automate all of that, right? So the Invoice Chase skill basically reads your overdue invoices from QuickBooks and PayPal, and it'll draft reminder emails for each one, right? It looks at each customer's payment history and then calibrates the tone accordingly. So it's actually pretty similar to the planned payroll skill that we walked through earlier, right? In terms of being able to tailor the follow-up emails and messaging based on the client standing with you, right? So if it's an old client, or if it's a client that, is consistently late on their payments, it'll have a little bit more of a firm tone when it drafts up an email follow-up with them. Whereas if it's a client that potentially, this is like a one-time thing, maybe they had something come up, it'll have a little bit more of a friendly tone when it's drafting up that email follow-up with the client. And if the invoice is through PayPal, it can send the reminder directly, but for others, it'll queue up a draft in your email client for you to review. It basically automates the whole process of having to chase down these invoices for their payments, right? So you can see here, we have $38,650 worth of invoices that are overdue and 4 clients that you need to chase down now. Basically drafted up all of the different email follow-ups for these clients, right? So we have this guy over here who you need to be very firm with, right? He's a chronic late payer, right? He's averaged 38 days late. So you need to be a little bit more firm with him, right? This is not his first rodeo. Whereas this guy over here, Cova Industries, this is or maybe not that guy, but this guy over here, Hatch & Co., he always pays on time. And, maybe skip that for now. He's going to pay eventually. He's 3 days overdue, but he usually pays on time, so we're not going to follow up with him right away. So it's pretty interesting. It's basically like a little sentiment analysis here, which analyzes the different client situations so you can kind of tailor the follow-up email with them. You can see here as well, these 2, Meridian Digital, Foxglove Studio, do their invoicing through PayPal, so it'll automatically send those, whereas other ones, such as Waystone Consulting and Hatch & Co., it's going to hold off for a little bit before it sends up those email follow-ups. So yeah, those are the skills that come with Claude for Small Business that handle sales and CRM. Now let's walk through some of the marketing and content skills that come along with the Claude for Small Business plugin. So the first one we're going to walk through is a content strategy and sales brief skill. So we're going to tell Claude Cowork here, mock up a use case for content strategy and sales brief. And you can see here, I'm kind of chaining some of these skills together, right? Content strategy and sales brief are 2 different skills that come along with this plugin. They can be combined to handle a more complex use case, right? So the problem here that this skill is solving is that a lot of small business owners know that they should be posting content, right? but they just don't know what to post. They don't have any ideas for what to post. The content strategy skill basically solves that by grounding your content in your actual sales data. If you ask for my opinion, I have a little bit of experience, running social media content engines for businesses. You don't necessarily want to just base your content strategy off of your sales data, right? You want to base it off of actual client testimonials. If you're working with a B2B business, base it off of actual client call transcripts, branding guidelines, all that stuff. But in general, this will basically help give you an idea of how you might want to structure your content strategy based off of your sales briefs, okay? So you can see here, it's basically pulling data from PayPal and QuickBooks, talking about your 90-day revenue, some of your products that are successful, and you can see here the community membership is bringing us the highest revenue, whereas our one-on-one coaching package is second highest, and our templates pack on social media isn't really driving much revenue, right? So basically uses these signals on your product performance, which it gathers from the sales data, to develop a content strategy of what you can target and what CTAs you can push with your content, right? So for example, May 2025 was your second best month for annual memberships. Maybe you want to post more about your annual memberships, just generate more traffic for your annual membership in the month of May when the intent is high, right? Talks a little bit about, coaching program, how it hasn't really been performing too much, how you might want to double down on social proof content to help push this opportunity, right? So it does the content strategy more in terms of like, okay, these are the products that are performing. These are maybe the gaps that you need to target to leverage these products the most, right? So it kind of develops the content strategy based off of that, not specifically like scripts, like content scripts, the creative aspect of it, but more on like the data and analytics side of how you can use your product performance to help drive the content mission, right? So it acts as more of an analytical brain rather than a creative brain, if that makes sense. You can see it also comes with a little briefing over here of the general content calendar that it is recommending that you push, right? So for example, if you're making a LinkedIn post, maybe you want to talk about the 3 months inside the community, what that actually looks like, and maybe post a little bit of a client testimonial with like a member journey or something like that, right? So it gives you a very high level overview of the general topics that you'll want to talk about for the week based off of the sales data, what might hit the best right now based off of seasonality flags, right? It's saying that this specific community membership is best to talk about in March, whereas maybe the annual membership is best to talk about during May. And yeah, so it basically gives a little high level overview of that. Pretty interesting. It can also guide you for the different channels that you want to post on, right? So for example, your email list might have a flash sale announcement, whereas your Instagram Reels will focus more on membership and coaching proof, more of that middle funnel content. So pretty interesting use case. To be honest, this is the one that I have the most opinions on because I develop social media content engines for businesses. So it's good to flag this kind of stuff. It's interesting insights for how you should generate the content. In general, though, if you're building out content engines for businesses, you're going to want to take into account a lot more things to be able to generate actual automated scripts, automated LinkedIn posts. But yeah, now let's walk through the Run Campaign and Canva creator skills. So I want you to mock up a use case for me for Run Campaign and Canva Creator. All right, basically, once you have the content brief, from the content strategy skill that you've used, you can use the Run Campaign skill to execute that content brief and actually, build out the content. So this is the more creative side of things. The content strategy skill was basically to strategize the content based off of your product signals, seasonality trends, all that kind of stuff. Run Campaign and Canva Creator actually help develop the creative assets for this. This is actually something that I'd be interested in diving into a little bit more because this kind of overlaps with the work that I do. But it basically builds a posting calendar, generates Canva designs for your social posts, drafts captions for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, and also stages sends in HubSpot. Okay, so it'll also ask for your approval before every step, before anything goes out, so you can stay in control of what you're publishing. So you can see here, it takes that sales analysis and basically drafts up some briefs over here and it asks for your approval before proceeding. So you can approve the brief, you can approve the angle, and then you can add it to LinkedIn over here. Now you can also build out these Canva designs too. So You can see here, I haven't connected it to my personal Canva, so it's going to be very rudimentary designs, but it'll basically mock up what it might be, what you might post to like an Instagram feed, what you might post to an Instagram story based off of those sales signals, right? So you drafted up a launch post, basically designs that, and then also gives like a little caption that you can use for your Instagram feed. You can see here, it also has like a posting schedule that it outlines for, Instagram, different, with your HubSpot, different launch emails. So it coordinates basically your marketing campaigns and the content that you're putting out for your business. You can see here, it also asks for your final approval. So to confirm and schedule everything, you literally just have to click this button over here. You can also open up a Canva to edit stuff. You can also edit certain captions. So pretty good tool just to automate a very high-level overview of the content. Again, I would want to probably dive a little bit more deeply into this to see how comprehensive it can be with the way it's building these out, but just from a first look, it looks pretty good. All right, so those were the features for marketing and social media content. Let's now walk through some of the features that Claude for Small Business gives you for customer service in particular. Okay, so I'm going to tell Claude Cowork over here, I want you to generate a mock use case for ticket deflector and handle complaint skills. But basically, the general thesis behind this is that customer complaints are very difficult to handle, and they're very difficult to handle well. And so the ticket deflector skill basically helps streamline the process of handling customer complaints without it feeling super robotic and super AI, right? So when you forward a customer email or paste in a support ticket, it will basically pull all of the customer's order history from PayPal, looks up the customer's account in HubSpot, and drafts a response that matches your writing style and also the tone that the situation calls for, right? So if it's a customer that is a little bit confused, they'll get clarity on their situation and then wording that helps them define clear next steps for their particular situation. And if it's an angry customer, they'll get acknowledgement of their case and then a very clear resolution path to help them solve their problem, right? And if the correct resolution to the customer complaint is a refund and the transaction is through PayPal, then the skill can basically issue that, then the workflow can basically issue that refund with your approval using just a single click. Now, the handle complaint skill actually goes one step further, right? In addition to drafting the customer response, it will basically look at the root cause of the issue and suggest an operational fix if it sees a pattern of the same issue happening over and over again, right? It'll basically surface that pattern and tell you what to do about it and the best next steps to take to remediate it. So we can see here, it has an example of this customer. Let's say this customer, Linda Osei, right? They're requesting a refund. They're really disappointed in the product and then they need their money back. This is the message that they sent out. And basically, this workflow will pull Linda's order from PayPal, all of her account history and everything. It'll analyze that and then draft a response based off of what it knows from this customer, right? So a very personalized response based off the customer's particular situation, which is very important because this customer is not a happy customer, right? They really want their money back. And so we can see here, basically, Claude Cowork, with the help of this Claude for Small Business, drafted up this email, which takes into account their specific situation, all of the specific things that it drew from HubSpot and PayPal based on their order number and their customer contacts, and drafts up this response. And it also allows you to approve this refund and also send the reply, or just send the reply, not approve the refund, or offer an alternative to Linda. And then you can see here, if we do approve it, this is what it will look like. It'll refund the customer via PayPal and send the email, all that good stuff, right? Now, if you want a more general overview of just like a pulse check on how your customers are feeling, what they're actually thinking about your products, about your services, then you can use the customer pulse and customer pulse check skills. So let's tell Claude Cowork, I want you to draft up a mock use case for customer pulse and customer pulse check. So essentially, you can use these skills to understand what your customers think, not just the loudest complaints that they actively voice out, but specific patterns that may be happening within HubSpot, within PayPal disputes, all that kind of stuff. So basically aggregate data from your PayPal disputes, HubSpot tickets, email sentiment, and any review exports that you may be pasting in. So like Google reviews, any of that kind of stuff. And it'll synthesize all of that into a report with verbatim quotes as evidence. So it won't just hallucinate stuff. It'll actually provide evidence backing up the claims that it makes. And it'll make a concrete list of 3 things to fix this week within your customer support pipeline, right? So the Customer Pulse basically does that entire process for you. Customer Pulse Check, on the other hand, is a little bit of a faster, light version of this. It'll basically scan the top 3 fixable issues, and it'll draft up response templates for each of them. So it's basically more of like a quick scan rather than the deep scan of Customer Pulse. So you can see here, this is an example of the report that Customer Pulse would bring up for you, right? It can basically read customer signals across 4 sources, including the Google review export that you bring in, any HubSpot tickets from its HubSpot connection, email replies, and also PayPal disputes. It also gives you an overall sentiment analysis. So we can see here that there are mixed sentiments for your product or service, which is actually down from last month, so it'll also flag that. You have 6 active disputes, and your average Google rating went down. So clearly, for this mock business, they're not doing very well this month. They might need to step it up a little bit, but see here, it's just basically a general overview of how your customers feel about your products or services. And it'll also surface, as I mentioned, with evidence, right? So it won't just hallucinate stuff. It'll actually point to specific customer signals, such as this person who has a HubSpot ticket said that they bought their membership 4 days ago and they genuinely don't know where to start, right? They're confused, they feel overwhelmed, all that stuff, right? So these are urgent signals that might need to be resolved, right? These customers are either confused, they're angry, they don't necessarily like specifically what's going on. This person actually loved the content. They just wish they had somewhere that told them where to look, right, for their email replies. So it basically helps surface all of these customer complaints, any confusions, all that stuff, aggregates it all, runs some analysis on it to determine the sentiment, and it basically gives you a snapshot of how your customers are seeing your business. So you can catch bottlenecks or catch specific red flags before they become anything that would potentially harm your reputation or your business, right? So yeah, those were the skills that help handle customer service as part of the Claude for Small Business package. Now let's jump into the next section, which is going to talk about business operations. Okay, we're going to analyze some of the skills that are useful for handling general business operations within a small business. So let's start off with the contract review skill. This one's actually very interesting. So I'm going to tell Claude Cowork, okay, mock up a use case for contract review. So essentially, every small business owner has to sign contracts at some point, right? Whether it's like a vendor agreement, a client NDA, a service agreement. And obviously, a lot of the time, you don't want to necessarily read the whole contract, right? So you're spending money with a lawyer, or you're just signing the contract without fully reading it, without getting a general idea of the terms of the contract, right? So the contract review skill basically helps streamline the process of reviewing contracts. And it's basically has a bunch of different best practices for doing this. You basically paste in a contract or upload a file. It'll review the whole thing in plain English, surface any non-standard agreements or surface any non-standard terms within the agreement, flags anything that's unusual, risky, out of place, and then rates each flag by the severity of it, whether it's a low, medium, or high severity flag. And you'll get an explanation on what each clause actually means and what would be the risk if you signed it as is. And so basically just does a whole summary of the contract, flags different things that seem a little bit out of place, and make sure that you're covered from a legal standpoint. Again, not too sure how well this will hold up in terms of legal stuff. I know legality is a little bit of like a gray area for AI, at least right now. So use this at your own risk, but the output will include a marked up red line, which will be a Word document with suggested edits and comments that you can use as a starting point for negotiations. If you want to take it to your lawyer to do a more professional review, it's not necessarily legal advice, but it basically flags stuff that would be worth taking a second look at in the contract, right? So here we have an example of like a mock contract, right? Brightline MSA V2. Okay, so there's 18 pages of contract. You don't want to necessarily read this whole thing. And so it'll read through it for you and then flag things in the contract that are a little bit out of place. And you can see here, it reviewed 18 pages, found 2 critical flags that you might need to push back on, 2 maybe not so critical flags, but things that you might want to negotiate if possible, and analyzes the standard terms and it viewed that they were okay, really no action needed for those. But you can take a look at the critical flags within the contract, which may seem a little bit out of place, right? This critical flag here said that it's not usually standard for this contract to say that all work products, deliverables, developments, inventions, and improvements created by the customer in connection with the services shall be deemed works made for hire and shall be the sole and exclusive property of Brightline Software Incorporated. So basically anything that you create while using their software belongs to them. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know why it flagged this, but it's something to take a look at, bring up to your lawyer. If you have a lawyer that's reviewing your contracts. So, if you're a small business and you just have contracts constantly coming in, client contracts, NDAs, work contracts, all that kind of stuff, just throw it into Claude for Small Business. Use this contract review skill, and it'll help flag stuff that you need to watch out for. All right, let's jump into the next skill for business operations. This one's also pretty interesting. It's basically a job post builder skill. So it helps you build out job posts to hire for specific roles within your business. So let's tell Claude Cowork, I want you to build me a mock use case for job post builder. Okay, so it's going to build that out. Basically, when you're trying to hire someone, the job post builder skill will create a full hiring packet from just a simple brief on the role, right? You basically just tell it the role that you're trying to fill, the experience you're looking for, any specifics about your team and culture that it should flag, and it'll basically write the whole job post, build a structured interview guide with scoring rubrics for each competency, and it'll draft an offer letter template too when you decide to send a candidate an offer, right? And the job post will be written based off of the best practices to attract the right candidates and filter out the wrong ones that you don't want to hire. The interview guide will basically give you a consistent and fair way to evaluate everyone you talk to. And the offer letter template covers standard terms and leaves everything that might require more specificity blank, so you can fill it in yourself. Now, this skill basically, it won't screen applicants for you, but it's focused on getting you to the front end of the hiring process so you can run a good search on these people and make your own judgment calls when necessary, okay? So you can basically tell Claude Cowork as a mock use case, right? You need to hire a community manager, some of the specifics of the role, right? It's gonna be part-time remote, someone who can own the member experience, give a little bit of like a salary estimate, and then you can ask it to build you the whole hiring packet. It'll essentially consolidate everything into a quick hiring brief and then build out the packet for you, right? So this is the job posting. Again, I don't know why it's using school. I think it's from like what I previously prompted. But anyways, this is the whole job post. It looks like something you would find on LinkedIn, right? It's basically talking about the role, what it's gonna do, what they're looking for based off of your briefings that you gave it, of your company culture, and some ideas of, the compensation, hours, all that stuff, right? So it's this whole LinkedIn job post, basically. You can post it to LinkedIn, Indeed, wherever you're posting your jobs, and it also gives you an idea of the interview guide, right? So you can see here the questions that you might want to ask to get an idea of their experience, get an idea of how proactive they are, on how well they make judgments, right? All the stuff that you outline that is important for this role inside of the briefing that you gave it. It'll basically craft up custom interview questions for those roles. So pretty interesting if you're looking to automate this process, right? Also draft up this offer letter. So, this is a pretty standard offer letter for, terms, scope of the work, details of the position, all that stuff. I'm not the founder of School Inc., so you change that, but yeah. So anyways, those are the 3 deliverables for this skill. Pretty comprehensive if you're just looking to get like a general outline or a general start off point for building out these offer letters, building out job descriptions, all that stuff, automating that whole process. Now, the last skill we're going to walk through for business operations is going to be a margin analyzer and price check skill. Basically, I'm sure if you're a business owner, if you've been running a business, you know that raising your prices can be the scariest thing to do, especially when you have your customers who are used to a specific price, and then analyzing the margins off of that can get a little tricky. So this skill helps automate some of that. Let's tell Claude Code, build out a mock use case for the margin analyzer and price check skill. Okay, so the margin analyzer skill basically pulls your cost data from QuickBooks and any revenue data from PayPal to build a unit economics picture by your product or your service. It'll basically benchmark your margins against inflation, any known cost changes, and it'll show you your pricing scenario data, right? So for example, let's say you do a 5% increase in your services. This could correlate with a historical 3% volume reduction for businesses in your category. So it'll basically help you analyze, okay, for this percentage that I increase my prices, how much volume for my business will that decrease? So you can do a lot of analysis for that. Not necessarily specific advice that you should follow, but general analysis that'll help guide you on how much to raise your prices, how much to increase your prices due to inflation, all that based off of standard economics principles. So it's pretty interesting. Basically gives you a whole financial picture of this process. You can see here, if you tell Claude Cowork that you feel like your costs have crept up over the year, it can analyze whether you're making less per sale than you used to. So it can analyze your highest margin product, your lowest margin product, just your average gross margins, and then based off of that information, recommend you based off of its analysis on whether you should raise prices, whether you should keep prices the same. And it also analyzes, your most pressing costs, right? Your contractor costs are up 31% year over year, whereas your payment processing fees are pretty stable, at least in recent history. So it'll analyze what's putting the most pressure on your business from a financial standpoint, what you might need to increase costs for, and basically analyzes all that data from your pricing softwares, right? And it'll also give you an idea of what you could potentially raise your prices to, right? If you want a more conservative price raise, then you could raise it to $522. Whereas if you want to be a little bit more aggressive with it, which is a little bit higher risk in terms of the volume that you'll be able to drive with your business, but if you want to be more aggressive, you can raise it to $597, right? So it gives you a little bit of these trade-offs, gives you a little bit of a general overview, snapshot of what certain scenarios would look like, whether you raise your prices by 5%, all the way up to 20%, any standard best practices for that based off of the economic theory behind things. All right, now the last set of skills we're going to walk through is the weekly cadence skills. So these are basically skills that an executive assistant would do, someone that's generating a weekly briefing report. Basically, these skills help you analyze your business from a high level in terms of weekly reports, quarterly reviews, all that kind of stuff. So let's jump into it. Let's walk through two of these skills that kind of work hand in hand. We have the Monday brief skill and the Friday brief skill. So Claude Cowork, I want you to generate me a mock use case for the Monday brief and Friday brief. Now, the Monday brief skill basically gives you a one-pager to start the week off with, right? It'll tell you your cash position, last week's sales, where your pipeline stands, what's on your calendar, and the 3 things that you may need to focus on with your business. And it basically replaces the first hour of the week that you use scrambling to analyze, what happened last week, what do I need to do this week, all that stuff. It'll basically analyze your 5 applications and figure out what you need to prioritize. Also, I didn't send that, so let's send it right now. But yeah, and then the Friday brief basically does the opposite of that, right? It'll give you an end of week pulse. It'll analyze your revenue versus the prior week, right? So the revenue at the end of this week versus the prior week. Your top sellers, any wins that came this week, any things that you need to watch out for next week. And it'll basically close the week with a clear picture of how you did and will flag anything that might need attention by Monday morning, right? And the thing with these is both of these can be scheduled to run automatically. And so you can literally just get an automated briefing for the beginning of the week and the end of the week using these 2 skills with Claude for Small Business. So let's wait for it to generate these actual mock briefs so we can kind of see what it looks like. All right, so you can see here it pulled our Monday brief from QuickBooks, PayPal, HubSpot, and our calendar to give us an idea of what we need to target kicking Monday off, right? So it tells us our cash on hand, any payments that are settling this week, any bills that are due, and then anything, that's projected at the end of the week, okay? Also give us an idea of last week's sales as well, so we have something to go off of based off of what happened last week. So all these pipeline deals that were moved from last week to this week, the status of them, whether you're in the negotiation stages, the proposal sent stages, draws all this information from QuickBooks, your CRM, PayPal, all that stuff. And so it's just a general overview of your business. Talks about, the week ahead based off your calendar schedule, gives you an idea of what you need to focus on. And then for the Friday brief, it gives you an idea of what happened this past week, right? So it talks about your revenue this week, how it compares to last week. You see we're up right now, so that's good. Top sellers this week, so you have some idea of what to go into next week. And yeah, so these skills are pretty similar. They accomplish pretty similar things. They basically just give you a snapshot of either the past week, what happened, or the week that's coming ahead. So that was the Monday review and Friday review skill. Let's talk about the last skill in this video where we're talking about Claude for Small Business. This is going to be the quarterly review skill, right? So it's basically very similar to the Monday review and Friday review skill, but just giving you a snapshot of a quarterly review. So let's tell Claude Cowork, give me a mock use case for the quarterly review skill. All right, so basically it's pretty self-explanatory, right? It'll generate a full business review narrative for the quarter, right? Any revenue trends, margin trends, customer health, top opportunities, and risks, and it exports this as a PDF or a slide deck, right? So it's formatted to, if you want to present it to a partner, an investor, or an advisor, just what happened this past quarter. So it's a little bit more of a professional overview and deliverable that this one gives. But generally the same thing, right? It just gives you a high-level overview of what happened over the quarter, and something that would normally take several hours to consolidate from all your different data sources, all your different applications, can now take just a couple minutes. So you can see here it's generating us an idea of what this quarterly review might look like, right? So you can see our total revenue, gross margins, all the stuff that someone like an investor or an advisor or someone on the board might be interested in, right? I think the most interesting thing here is they'll basically draft up a custom deck for you that you can present to whoever might be interested in this. But yeah, that was an overview of the new Claude for Small Business feature. Hope you learned something. Hope you got some value from it. If you're a business owner looking to incorporate this in your business, I hope this provides a little bit more clarity on what each of these new workflows does and the different things that you could use. I know for me, definitely, I'm going to be incorporating a lot of these into my own business as well. And also, if you're an AI agency owner, you can definitely work with your businesses, work with your clients right now to help them incorporate this. A lot of people don't know that this exists yet. So, as I always say, AI agencies right now, you should be focused on helping keep your clients up to date with the latest tools and technologies that they can use to level up their business, right? And this is a great example of something that you can bring to your client and say, hey, there's this new feature that was released. Let me show you the best way to use it within your business. Feel free to comment anything that you want clarification on. I'll try to dig into whatever questions you guys have. But yeah, hope you guys learned something. Hope this was helpful. Just a quick flag, I drop weekly AI newsletters, walkthroughs of everything that's happening new in AI, stuff like this frequently inside of my school community. If you want to join that, if you want to get the latest updates about what's happening in AI, stuff that you can incorporate into your clients' workflows, stuff that you can incorporate into your own business, feel free to join the school community. I'm going to drop the link to join that in the description below this video. But yeah, hope to see you in there, and I'll see you guys in the next video.